Recording. Hey.
Yay! Hey everybody, it's me,
Hello.
Sam.
And I'm Mason.
And you know it's good when you hear right company.
Woo, good. Oh man, I'm so excited. I can't stop smiling.
So before we start talking, we're gonna do our thumbnail poses.
No,
Are you ready?
You don't have to do thumbnail poses. I do it because, like, I am not as expressive, like, facially as you. So, like,
No.
Huh?
You told us we're doing Charlie's Angels. I have to pose.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Sam and I were like, I was like, it'd be really cute if we did like a Charlie's Angels things like back to back.
Yes.
I forgot about this. How embarrassing. Okay, y'all.
So like this, and then which do I need to? I can't tell which way I need to be turned.
Yeah, so it's back to back, and we're like,
okay.
Yep. Yeah. Is this it?
Okay. I think we got it.
I might not follow through with this plan. I'm letting you know right now.
Okay, so why are we doing a Charlie's Angel pose? Because we're talking cops and robbers, super spies, and the like. It is History 3 Trapped. Woo! And I have to say, me and Mason were already starting to talk about this. And we're like, okay, we better hit record because we're like losing all the good conversation. But this rewatch was so much better than we expected it to be.
So, God tier show. That might be a spider I have to kill later. I hope not. Okay, sorry, sidetrack.
It's okay. When you said God tier and then you started staring, I'm like, oh my God, is he here? So History 3 Trapped is the first of the two different storylines from the season 3 of History. And Trapped is a unique show in that, honestly, if it didn't have the boys love element, this would still be a really fun show to watch. Mm-hmm. I feel like in the other shows, definitely the romance is a big part of it, but in this particular show, I'd recommend anybody to watch it. So Mason, do you want to give them a rundown?
Sure, I can give a quick rundown. So basically it starts with Meng Xiaofei. He is a cop, and he is currently pursuing Tang Yi. Tang Yi is a mob boss for the Thinkin group. I want to say that's how you say it. Could be wrong. And 4 years ago, Meng Xiaofei and Tang Yi, both of their like mentor figures, were shot and killed next to each other. And Xiaofei, the cop, is like, oh, Tang Yi's involved somehow. And Tang Yi's like, I was on the scene, but I wasn't involved. And Xiaofei is really just trying to find out this murder. So he, over the 4 years, was like, really set that Tang Yi either did it or is not revealing all the information that he has to the police. And that's where they kind of meet. So we start with Xiaofei raiding a meeting that Tang Yi is having. And kind of through shenanigans, they end up bonding. He ends up being Tang Yi's bodyguard, and they end up falling in love. And that's kind of the light gist of it. But it's pretty in depth, so I feel like as we talk, we can kind of go almost episode by episode about our feelings about it. But that's kind of the gist of it.
Correct. So first to say, I appreciate the fact that they gave us so much good plot material to work with. Because I really think without the plot that we had with this story, a lot of the boys love stuff would not have worked. Because in the beginning of the show, there doesn't seem to be any attraction. There definitely does seem to be kind of like, I can't leave you alone type of tension going on, but no attraction. And there's no way that it would have moved to attraction if it wasn't for some of the plot devices that they used. And they very skillfully made the plot devices seem like they made sense in the story. Mm-hmm. And I really appreciated that, because then it didn't make it seem like the boys' love was just thrown in there to like meet the qualifications of the history series, but it also made their relationship progression feel a lot more natural. So I don't know, I really, really like the way they told the story
Yeah.
in this series.
It unfolds really nicely. Like, you really buy that these two people fell in love. So while you're watching them like in love, it's really sweet because you're like, I get it. Like, it makes sense, you know? And I like that the character dynamics work really well. Like, I like that you could tell that Tangi and Xiaofei, like, even when the cameras aren't rolling and they're not talking about work or whatever, they could have a conversation, you know? Because Xiaofei seems like the person, he could talk to anybody about anything, anytime, you know? He could just chit-chat. And Tangi's a bit quieter, but he'll always listen, you know? And I could see that being being that role for them.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we both watched the show on Viki, and I have to say, in the past, I've said that I've really enjoyed watching shows on Viki because I like the commentary. This was a very different experience for me. The commentary for this show on Viki was brutal. It was really, really bad. The commentary that I had problems with were the commentary moments about the sister Hong Yi. People were really gross and rude about her as a person, about her appearance, about the relationship she gets into in the story, a lot of really ugly things about her. Of course, people spoiled a lot of the plot twists ahead of time because people are assholes and they're willing to do that. But also, one of the things that really pissed me off, and it's something we've talked about before, everyone just assumed that Tangyi was the top and Xiaofei was the bottom, and they made a lot of assumptions about their character and their behavior based on sexual positions. And this absolutely was a couple where I feel like I don't see how anybody can make a judgment about that. Not that anybody has a personality linked to their sexual position, but like, to me, I never really thought about what their sexual position was. I thought more about what role they play in terms of emotional support in the relationship.
Right.
And it really was pissing me off because people kept saying like, oh, Tangyi's acting like a bottom, or Xiaofei is a power bottom. And I'm like, the fuck? Why? Gross. And also, the fuck?
Like, there's like alluded sex scenes, but there isn't like explicit sex in this. Like, that's not at all the point of this show. I do not like that.
At all.
This is why I don't watch with the fucking comments going. Because I'm trying to read the subtitles and I can't read the annoying comments at the same time.
I turn the comments on because sometimes there's interesting things in the comments. Like, one thing that was in the comments that made me like laugh out loud is that someone said that the captain looked like a blobfish.
They're not correct.
So yeah, I mean, there are times when the comments really can enhance the watching. I mean, the comments were really fun to read when I was watching Mood Indigo, but this time I was like, you know, this commentary is very insightful because it lets you know about the kind of people who watch these shows. There are those people who were like us, who were like, hey, quit commenting this gross shit, or pay attention, whatever else. But then there are those people that literally watch history because they're looking for the steamy sex scene. So like, there was the whole emotional conversation at the graveside. And like, it was a very emotional and powerful part of the story. And people are like, this is boring, get to the making out. And it's like, how do you make it through 9.5 episodes and you're just waiting for 16? In that case, fast forward. Why even bother watching? It's on the internet. You can skip forward if you want to.
That was such an important and like emotional scene. I can't believe someone was like, get to the fucking, like, ew. That man died. Right. Oh my god. I had other problems with that scene, but I wasn't thinking get to the fucking. I was like, why did he kill himself in front of his lover's grave? That seems just.
I have very many theories about why he did it, but before we go there, spoilers. Nothing but spoilers.
Oh yeah.
Spoilers all around.
If you haven't watched it or you don't want to know the spoilers, click out now.
Yeah, go watch and then come back. So a big part of the plot for this, and the reason why it's called Trapped, is because a lot of people in this story are trapped by what happened at specific moments in time, and they've let their obsession with that moment trap them into certain behaviors, certain roles, certain actions, because they want to either correct what happened or they want to resolve what happened in that one moment in time. And the biggest moment in time is there was a police detective by the name of Sister Li Xian. Well, they call her sister, but just Li Xian. And she was killed alongside of the former head of the Shenzhen crime family. And so for 4 years, Xiao Fei has been trying to figure out, why was she with this man at that moment? Who killed them? Why they killed them? Why is it that she was even around the mob boss to begin with? And that's his main impetus for everything that's going on, that she was his mentor. He really looked up to her, and he wanted to figure out what happened to her, because people are saying that she was fucking around with the mob boss, or she may have been involved in mob activities, and he just wants to clear her name and get justice for her.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Tang Yi, that was his like surrogate father, the man who found him on the streets when he was 12 and raised him as his own son. And he basically saw their dead bodies. He was around when they were killed. He didn't see who killed them, but he has his ideas of who killed them. And so his whole thing is trying to get revenge for the person that killed his father figure. And then we have a third character who is suspected of being the killer, who is the former associate of the older mob boss, Old Tong. And he did 24 years in prison, and he happened to have got out of prison right before this murder took place. And he actually shot Tang Yi, but we don't really know for sure if he was the killer at the time that the story is going along, but there's big suspicions about it. But he has a link to both Old Tong and Li Shen, because Li Shen was his former lover, and of course Old Tong was his like best friend slash business associate. And so a very tangled web that this one moment in time cast on these three characters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which I think is a really clever way of explaining the title. Like, not that I explained it clever, but like that they use that as a way to create the title for the show.
Yeah, it was a good name.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's good. I don't even know where to begin. It's just like, it was such a good show.
See, this is so funny because when it's a good show, we're like, we're gonna have 1,000 things to say because we love it. And we're like, it's just good.
Yeah.
It's just good. And this so what I really liked about that, the fact that they were all connected by that moment, it made it to where everything else that happens in the story stays connected to that moment. So the music box, and Tang Yi finding out that Sister Li Shen was his mother, finding out that Wang Hao was his father, finding out that the man who took him in was doing it because that was actually his godfather and was taking care of his last obligation to his best friend. The fact that, you know, when Hao...
Wait. I don't think that was established I didn't realize that Old Tong knew that was their kid. I thought he just thought he was a random kid on the street.
No, I think that he knew that was their kid. And the reason I think that he knew that was their kid is because I think that's why him and Sister Li Shen were talking to each other. Because there's a moment in the last episode where Xiao Fei says, Li Shen left for 3 days looking for you, and then she came back. Shortly after he's kicked out of his house, that's when he meets Old Tong on the street. And I really think that probably she had told Old Tong, hey, my son is missing. I need you to find him. Mm-hmm. And when he found him, that's when she went back to work and stopped looking for him. So I do think that he always knew. And I think that's the other reason why he and Sister Li Shen were together when they got murdered, because they've been keeping contact with each other over the years because he's got her son.
I buy that, and I don't, because she sent him a gift every year until he ran away. And if she knew where he lived, why would she not send a gift?
Because if she sent a gift to old Tong, don't you think that he would have been like, you know where my mother is? Where is she?
Mm-hmm.
And so she probably figured, well, at this point, since he's now with him, I have to let him go, because otherwise he would wonder, why does my mom know where I am, but she's not coming to get me?
Right. I think you've provided good examples. I'm still not buying it because I don't think that's enough for me to say that he knew that that was her kid.
I just think that all the context clues are there, especially when he talks about, like when you find someone you love, and like there was just a lot of things that he was just dropping, like little hints and dabbles that like, you're more to me than just a kid I picked up off the street. Because one of the things that I found really bizarre, and I don't know if you noticed it too, when he adopts the girl and the boy from the street, they don't show any conversation with him and that girl afterwards. Like, you never see him and the girl interact ever. Even after she gets older and she's a woman, you never see a scene with those two together. And I think it's because for him, yeah, I like her and she's cool, but you're my godson. Our relationship is super close.
Mm-hmm.
Because even on his birthday, why wouldn't you have the little girl there for his birthday? So I just feel like they were establishing that, like, that link was there. Huh?
I just thought it was a story flaw. Again, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying, like, I think it's I'm on this idea. It's not important. I don't care. Like,
yeah, I feel like it was established, and also the fact that he was the one that was left to like lead the group. I don't know. I just feel like there was a lot of stuff that was there that led to that point. But on the flip side of that, I can see how being somebody coming from the outside, having been locked up for 24 years, you get out of prison after having this really kind of like horrible moment dropped on you 24 years ago, where the woman you love says, I'm having an abortion, I'm not going to have your child. Your best friend is sitting right there and had just gotten through telling you you need to spend more time in jail because it's hot outside right now and you can't be out in the streets. And then him doing 24 years after that, because at the time when they went to go visit him in the jail 24 years ago, he's like, you need to be in here for a few more months. What happened that led him to be in there for 24 more years? They never explained that. But at one point he says, you sent men in here to keep me in here longer. And it makes me think that something happened after that moment that I guess maybe he got marked as an enemy of the group. I'm about to sneeze. I'm so sorry. Excuse me. And maybe he had to like kill somebody or defend himself in prison, which caused him to have an extended sentence. I don't know. But he's had 24 years to sit and stew on what he thought was a massive betrayal by his best friend and his best girl. Gets out of prison. They're killed side by side, which furthermore probably confirms that, yeah, my best friend and my best girl were together. He sees this young man that everyone tells him is the adopted son of his former best friend. So, of course, his mind is running to all these assumptions that, like, oh, these two were having this big relationship behind my back and living happily ever after while I'm rotting in jail. And then to live obsessed about this massive betrayal that he perceives in his own mind, and then to find out that it was all just make-believe, that none of it was true, and that people were actually doing really honorable things behind his back. Like, I could see where this man is like, I just don't think I have anything else to live for. Because this was the only thing keeping me going.
Yeah. I get why he killed himself.
Yeah. It's just, I hate that for him. Like, at first I was like, oh, his character is so fucking evil. And then later on I'm like, oh, his character is so hurt. I want to hug you.
Like, this poor man, he doesn't deserve this. I thought it was really well done. Like, I liked the moral that was driven too with Xiaofei and Tanyi, where I think it was the end of episode 8, so like top of 9. Basically, like, we still think Chen Wenhao is evil, but Xiaofei went and did something, and you're like, okay, Tangi is probably his kid, but it hasn't been like verbally confirmed to us through the characters. But like through context clues, you're like, this is probably what's gonna happen. So Chen Wen-hao kidnaps Tangi's sister Hangi, and they basically lure him into a trap to try and kill him, essentially. And then I just thought it was like a nice scene that paid off later in the show at the very end when they find out who the real killer is. The idea of like revenge and like getting revenge isn't gonna make you feel better. What's gonna make you feel better isn't killing them. What's gonna make you feel better is them being prosecuted by the law and letting them rot in fucking jail forever. I thought that was a really nice little like moral moment that they had that throughout the series was a thing that built, and it paid off in the end when Tangi and Xiaofei find out who the real killer is, which ended up being Xiaofei's coworker who sat like a few desks down. And let me tell you, Mr. Xiaofei, I respect you for not beating that man on sight. Tangi went ham, beat him with some brass knuckles with spikes on him. And when Xiaofei found out that a guy he worked for the last 5+ years shot his mentor figure who he loved dearly, man, I would have grabbed a brass knuckle too and started wailing. Like, good on Xiaofei for not going at it. But again, it's the moral of like getting that revenge won't make you feel better. It'll only make you feel worse. And that like Xiaofei is like, Tangi, if you shoot him, not only will you not make you feel better, but I then have to arrest you. And I love you, and I don't want that for us. But Tangi's like, nope, I'm gonna shoot him. And then Xiaofei steps in and he gets shot. And it's just like, I don't know, I just thought it was like a nice little moral thing that they had running that ended up having a payoff at the end. It was like a good example of the show having a setup and a payoff with its characters, what they want, what they need, and having that all come together in these moments. And it reminded me of a great episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender. And if you watch that show, you know where I'm going with this. It's the episode called The Southern Raiders in season 3, where Katara goes to find the man that killed her mother. And like, Aang is like, Katara, like, I support you wanting to heal about your mother's death, but going to kill the man that killed your mom, I don't know if that's the way to do it. It's not gonna make you feel good. And she's like, fuck you, his blood is mine. And then she meets him and she's about to kill him. And she's like, nope, you're a pathetic piece of shit. Not worth it. It's not gonna make me feel better. And that's what that was. I don't know. Sorry. Anyways, it was a good moment.
I still want the blood of my enemies on my hands. I'm petty in that way. I felt like Tangi was very much me in that situation. Like, I'm ready to go. Let's do this. But I do feel like it's kind of awesome that before his mentor died, the last thing he said is like, you have to clean up our organization. Mm-hmm. You have to give better lives to everyone who works for us, because drug dealing is no way to live. And he talked about the grim reality. When you're a drug dealer, you don't know if today is your last day. Mm-hmm. So, you know, we spend a lot of money on alcohol and big meals and fancy cars because we don't know when we're going to die. It could be tomorrow. It could be in a few minutes, which it ended up being for him. Yeah. And so he's like, I want to legitimize us because I don't want that to be our reality anymore. I want better for you. I want better for every man who's ever worked for us. I'm trying to make us legitimate so that we can fall in love and have our families and have our futures and not be worried about somebody coming to get us. Mm-hmm. And so I really appreciate that Xiaofei, in a way, helped Tangi live out the dream that old Tang had for him.
Right.
Yeah.
Again, it all comes together so nicely. And that's why this series is so good. Because like,
yeah, like this, we haven't even talked about the sex or anything. We've only been talking about plot because the show is this good.
It's so interesting. Oh man, I love these characters. I love how they you mentioned earlier how they're like emotionally helpful towards each other and not necessarily like who's the top, who's the bottom. I think Xiaofei is such a good boyfriend for 2 scenes in particular. First one, so Tangi, for the first time, really opens up to Xiaofei, and he's like, yeah, I lived on the streets. Old Tang is the one that, you know, kind of raised me. I like never really had a celebrated a birthday until it was with him when I was 13. And I don't really do that anymore. Yada, yada, yada. Tragic backstory. And you're like, damn, kid had it rough. And then Tanyi is sitting in his room, and it's his birthday, and Xiaofei shows up with the cake and sings him happy birthday. And it's just like, it is the sweetest moment. And the actor who plays Tanyi is so amazing in that scene because you could tell that, like, Tanyi, like, it's the first time you really see, like, heavy emotion from Tanyi. Like, he literally is, like, about to cry. Like, he just is so touched that someone would care for him in this way, in a way that someone hasn't in many years, you know? And then Xiaofei is like, and I want you to spend your birthday alone. You're always going to spend it with me. And Tanyi is just like, I fucking love this person. Like, it's such a sweet scene. It made me tear up because I was like, oh, good for that. Like, Xiaofei, you did good. And then, so that scene was really great, and it showed, like, a great dynamic between them. And the other scene I really like is when, so earlier, Tanyi was gonna kill Chen Wenhao. He was like, I don't care if you're my dad, fuck you, you're still somehow involved in the killing of Old Tang, and I'm still angry. And Xiaofei is like, no, 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 don't let revenge take you. You know he didn't do anything, don't do it. He talks him out of it, but Tanyi, like, ditches Xiaofei and, like, drives home without him, which, rude. But, you know, he just found out that the guy who he thought killed his dad is actually his dad. Like, I don't know, I'd be upset too. So Tanyi is understandably, like, just, he's kind of having a meltdown, as one would. And Xiaofei just, like, he comes in, he, like, Tanyi is, like, all flustered and angry, and he just, like, he, like, hugs him, he kind of almost physically, like, holds him down to, like, calm him down. Tanyi is, like, running all over the place, and then he, like, kisses him, and it's not a kiss of, like, ooh, let's fuck. It's like, I love you, know that I'm here, and know that I'm here for you in this moment right now. And he's like, it's not like a sexual kiss, like a kiss that, like, expresses their love for each other. And I really like that. And then he kind of ends up calming him down and kind of bringing him back to earth and letting Tanyi cry. He lets it out, you know, and Xiaofei's there to, you know, hold him and tell him everything's going to be okay. It was like, it reminded me of the lyrics to Breathe, Lehigh song, where it's like, just breathe and I'll be here to hold you. So,
yeah,
their dynamic was so good. And scenes like that, like, perfect. Like, perfect characters, perfect everything.
they really did have a great relationship. And I think probably one of my favorite scenes of, like, what I imagine they're like when no one is around is the scene when they were cooking the omurice.
Mm-hmm.
Because they were talking about everything, and, you know, he was telling him it's not too late to fix things and whatnot. But then afterwards, they had this, like, really cute moment where they were drawing the faces on the omurice, which is very reminiscent of the other history too, by the way, Easter egg.
Mm-hmm.
But the way that they were just kind of, like, playful, and at the same time, you know, like, hey, I'm gonna get you out of this funk, or we had a serious conversation, but that doesn't mean there's any animosity or anything like that. It's just us supporting each other. I really, really like that. I really liked a lot of their moments where they're just like, you know, okay, so this is a nitpicky thing, but maybe you feel it too. Sometimes in boys love, people are looking for, like, the big kisses or the big rolling around without shirts and all that stuff. But one of the things that they do really well in this show is the absent-minded touches, like grabbing someone by their waist or stroking someone's neck or holding them in a way that feels a little bit more intimate. And this show, as their relationship progressed, those, like, kind of mindless touches were beautiful.
Mm-hmm. That says more than, like, the sex scenes do, you know? Yeah, especially, like, the kisses. I thought all of the kisses between, like, Xiaofei and Tanyi were purposeful and helped progress the story. they weren't there for fan service, but they progressed the narrative. And I liked that. It wasn't like, all right, it's 50 Shades of Grey, and after every scene, we need to fuck. So let's get in here. It was like, no, like, all of their kisses, everything works to build the narrative together.
I agree. And I like the way that Xiaofei came into his acknowledgement of his feelings for Tang Yi. He had that one kind of gay panic moment where he was just like, am I really jealous? Why am I jealous? Oh my God, do I have feelings for this man? Oh shit, what am I gonna do? Well, then he gets shot trying to protect Tang Yi, and he ends up in the hospital. And at that moment, that's when Tang Yi realizes, like, I feel more than a passing affection for my friend. I actually really like this dude. And in order to protect him, I need to get him away from me because somebody's coming after the people I love. And they're on the rooftop of the hospital, and Xiaofei just like kisses him and is like, I'm going after you now. You're my man. So whatever you were going to say to me that was going to push you away from me, it's too late because I'm with you.
Good. I love that moment. Like right after he kisses him, he like leans on the balcony and goes, ah! Like he just like does this like very cutesy, like kind of like scream, like I just kissed the boy I like, and you're like, good for you, kid. Even though you're 10 years older than me, good for you.
Because it was one of those things where he had been wrestling with it, but once he made his mind to do it, he's like, oh, I can't believe I just did that. But I totally did that, and I'm so glad I did because I love him. And it's just, it feels very real.
Yeah.
You know,
the show is much more grounded than a lot of other boys' loves tend to be. And not to say, like, it's a bad show if it's not grounded. It's just, like, it is nice to see, like, a show that feels grounded and honest. And I like that it doesn't play into a lot of tropes, you know? Because, honestly, you could have made this a straight couple and it would have been the same fucking show. Seriously. It would have been the same because the characters work and it still would have been interesting. Like, them being gay was, like, it's fun for me. But, like, it didn't, like, you know, make it more interesting.
I will tell you where the being gay actually made sense in the storyline for me. And that's when Hee Hong, who was the guy in the organization that wanted to still do drugs, he's like, you're trying to take the drugs away from us, and also you have this gross relationship with this cop. To me, him being gay for the other police officer, even though he's very established as bisexual, that's canon. Him having alternative sexual preferences was one more reason for the guys in the organization who didn't want to stop selling drugs to hate him. Because they were like, you're not as much of a man as we are. You don't want to sell drugs. You aren't just going after girls. You're trying to be like this goody two-shoes. You're kind of a pussy, and we don't like that. And it was one of those things where I'm like, okay, it makes sense for this information to be a part of other people's opinions of him because they're looking for reasons to betray him. So this just kind of stacked it up for these guys. And also it proves these guys are like terrible people because this is the rationale they're working with.
Right.
So I thought that was interesting. Also, him having an attraction to guys, Tang Yi specifically, played into what happened with him and the betrayal by Zindi, which that was probably one of the most angering moments in the show for me, because it's like, how dare you? So there's a moment there's a couple of moments where Zindi kind of alludes to or is very clear with Tang Yi, I have an attraction for you. I like you more than a brother. And Tang Yi tells him very clearly, I don't feel that way about you.
Right.
It's not going to work. At one point, Zindi colludes with Hong Yi to have Xiaofei beat up. But instead of him getting beat up,
they're trying to murder him. He literally said, I tried to get him murdered.
Yeah, and I guess, like, when he got with Hong Yi, I guess his agreement with Hong Yi was, like, if you can get him to this certain place, I'm going to have some guys beat him up. And Hong Yi didn't like the police officer to begin with. She's like, okay, well, I'll go along with that. But then once the shooting happened, she's like, okay, you didn't tell me you were going to try to kill him. Also, I almost got killed there. Our working together is fucking cut off. I'm not going to have anything to do with this because that's not what I'm trying to do here.
Mhm.
But he tries to get Xiao Fei killed a couple of different times, but he's also working with a sworn enemy of Tang Yi in order to get this taken care of. And at one point, he drugs Tang Yi and tries to rape him in the backseat of the car.
Mhm.
And when he gets, I thought it was so smooth how he wrapped that seatbelt around his neck to get away. That was fucking amazing. But when he gets
I get kidnapped.
for real, I was like, keep that in your mental Rolodex. But when they bring him back to the mansion and like, why would you do some shit like this? He's like, I'm entitled to it. You don't know what I've done for you. I'm taking what's mine. It's just like, wow.
My only qualm, which I wish had been, my only thing with that plot line with him is I wish somehow Jack was more involved because he suspected him immediately. Like episode 3, like he suspected, what's his name? Ade?
Mm-hmm.
Like Ade? He suspected him. And I wish that had been followed through as a plot line of like, oh, Jack is somehow more involved with this. Is like, he's the one that, like brings the truth to light in some way. Because otherwise, what's the point of him knowing? It's a very small note. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I think that Jack not being more involved in that has less to do with him not knowing what was going on. It has more to do with his work with Interpol. Because he had a very specific mission that Interpol gave him. And he's like, if I get too involved with this side shit, I'm not going to be able to do the things that I need to do from my cover.
Disagree. I think it's just a minor story note. I don't think it's like something you need to ration out. I think it's just like, oh, I wish they followed through with this.
Yeah. And I just, because Jack is, so let's talk about Jack. Jack is a very strange character. So we find out in the last episode that Jack has been working as like a double agent mercenary for Interpol. And his whole job is to ingratiate himself into these mob families in order to get information for Interpol so that they can take down these different drug cartels. And there's one point where Wen Hao and Tang Yi are drinking tea. It's not the first time they drank tea, but the second time they drank tea. Mm-hmm. And he tells him, hey, the last time we drank tea, I told you I wouldn't sell drugs to anybody in your organization, but 3 of my ships that have drugs have been interfered with. I think someone in your organization is feeding information to the cops. Mm-hmm. I have reason to believe that Jack is probably that person. Mm-hmm. So we find out that Jack has been given this assignment to basically not only get information on Shinten group, but also to try to find the link between Wen Hao and this other guy, Kun Chen, and what their drug rings are and how to intercept them as well. And Jack does a great job because up until the last episode, when I first watched the series, I didn't suspect him at all. Never suspected him.
Mm-mm. Like he's got Jack always has like a smirk on his face, but it just seemed like, I don't know, it didn't make me like suspicious of him. It just seemed like he was kind of ready to beat you up if he needed to.
Yeah. He comes across more as cocky or like self-confident than conniving.
Yeah. And I wouldn't argue that he was conniving either. You know, it was his job. It was whatever.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of morally gray things happening in this series, so yeah.
Let's talk about the most morally gray one for me, the police captain.
Yeah, because 50% I'm like, I feel very bad because his daughter was dying. So what happened was the police captain, we find out, was basically helping sell drugs that they had confiscated back to mob people or just selling drugs, cocaine, whatever. And he was like a part of this scheme with another guy who I forgot what his name was.
AZ.
Huh?
AZ. AZ is the police officer. ZD is the other one.
AZ. AZ is the one that actually killed Li Zhen and Old Tang. And the police chief knew all of this, and like he was one of those characters where he was like the tough boss that genuinely cared for his subordinates though. Like he would chew them out, but he was like, if y'all are broke and need a place to sleep, my door is open kind of guy. So he was very likable. I loved him. His daughter was getting married. You're like, this man, what a nice man. And then you're like, oh no, oh, you've been doing bad stuff, man. You gotta go to jail. You gotta go to jail. So he eventually turns himself in, basically says, I did all this bad stuff. Gotta arrest me. And the reason he was helping to sell drugs was 5 years prior to the events of the story, his daughter was dying of some type of
leukemia.
And she needed like a bone marrow transplant, and they couldn't find a donor in the country. And the only donor they found was like out of the country, which was gonna cost an arm and a leg. So he embezzled in order to save his daughter's life. But once you do it once, you can't just kind of leave it. It's a slow step back. So he kind of was helping do it for the last 4 years because he ended up getting tied up in it because he wanted to save his daughter's life. But then he ended up using some of the money to like pay for her wedding and things like that too. Yeah, what he did was bad though.
Yeah, I mean, the police chief is another person who's trapped. That's why this is such a perfect name for the show. Mm-hmm. He's another person who's trapped because on the one hand, he is that guy who believes in the moral sanctity of the police and their function in society. It's just like when Xiaofei told him, you told me the police are like a lamp, an oil lamp in a windy night. We have to try to keep the fire lit because we light the path for the right way to go. And the police chief obviously felt like, you know, as a police officer, we definitely have a moral obligation to protect the population, to not let bad guys go free, to build cases, all this other stuff. But when it came down to it, he says himself, I chose being a father over being a police officer. And I can't say that I wouldn't do different. Mm-hmm. You know, if my only child was dying and I had the choice of selling drugs or watching them die, I mean, at this point, give it to me. I will sell whatever you want to. If I got to sell me, I'll do it because I have to keep them alive. Right. But then after getting implicated in all this, he allows somebody that he knows is living that morally right path to be murdered and to let their character get completely trashed over the 4 years. And it's like, okay, at this point, it's not just about I did this thing to save my daughter. Now I'm doing this thing to save myself. Mm-hmm. And it's a good thing that after seeing his daughter in her wedding dress, he's like, you know what? I've done as much as I can as her father. Now's the time when I need to go ahead and be a man and tell the truth. Because, I mean, he says to Xiaofei, I hated you because you kept digging at this. And if you hadn't kept digging at this, I could say that everyone around me is kind of like not really as morally upright. And so what I did was not wrong, but you reminded me every day of the horrible thing I let happen. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, I felt empathy for the police chief, but then when I think about, you know, Xiaofei hearing all these rumors about someone he admired and be like, oh, she was fucking the mob and she was probably selling drugs and she was this, that, and the other, I could see where he's like, you know, you really are the scum of the earth. What you did for a righteous reason, but you let a lot of other bogus shit happen because you were fucking scum.
Yeah, people died for his mistakes.
Yeah.
So... yeah, it's very morally gray. I will say, I thought that the way that they, like, showed him confessing was really cheesy. Like, they had a scene where after he visits his daughter, he's, like, slowly walking down a dark alleyway, and then he walks up some stairs, turns a corner, and he's into the light. And the next scene, he confesses. I was like, come on with this fucking melodramatic, overhanded visual metaphor.
You know, you just have to hand fist it sometimes. You gotta let them know, hey, morals here. message, gotta give it to him. So, I mean, I felt a lot of sympathy, but then I felt no sympathy, and I'm like, this is you finally doing the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other person in the story that I was really kind of concerned about was the girl who was the only like female police officer. And I wasn't concerned about her because she didn't have a super big role, but I was concerned that she was going to be the girl that everybody hates. Because in Boys Love, there have been that. And even though history hasn't had a lot of that throughout the course of the series, they did have the one slightly hateful girl in the first History, My Hero, and then you had the girl that wasn't so great in History, Obsessed, and Stay Away From Me, and I'm like, okay, they're going to make her the bad guy because she has a crush on Xiao Fei, and she's probably going to make things difficult for him now that she knows that not only does he not like her back, but he's in love with a mob boss.
Mm-hmm.
But I was really glad that they didn't play out her character that way. They didn't make her hateful. They didn't make her spiteful or do things to try to sabotage them. Instead, she really got over her feelings, and she proved that, like, even if he doesn't love me back, he's still my friend, and this is still my police family, and I still want to protect everybody regardless.
Yeah.
But I was really worried about how they were going to twist her character in the show to make her the bad guy.
Yeah, I like that they didn't make her the bad guy, but they also just made her not a character. So
yeah,
it was
they're just like,
and that's actually one of the few complaints I have with the show is I feel like they did a really piss poor job with their female characters. I don't find Hong Yi at all an interesting character, or I don't like her relationship. Like, I don't give a shit about her and that old man. I found her really annoying, honestly, and just plain unlikable. And I'm like, why did you have to do this? Like, the only prominent female character is make her extremely unlikable and unhelpful to anything at all going on.
I think that Hong Yi could have been a better character if they had not made her appear so childish.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there was a lack of maturity about her character, which made me kind of feel the same way as Dao Yi. Like, there's too much of a difference in age between us, but like, there's a difference of maturity levels between us. By the way, I fucked the shit out of Dao Yi. There were some very fuckable old men in this show. Every last one of them except for Blob Chief could get it.
Real talk. Like, I messaged Sam last night and I was like, Chen Wen Hao's kind of fuckable, and she was like,
like, really, Dao Yi could get it, Old Tong could get it, Wen Hao could get it, those three old men, I'm ready to do this.
This is a very attractive show. Like, the main cast, too, like, Tang Yi, Xiao Fei, Jack, Zhao Ji, like, whew.
Yeah. Even like their one police officer friend that wasn't involved in any of the drama, I'd fuck the shit out of him too.
It's an attractive.
All he wanted to do was go to lunch. I'd give him something to eat. Hey.
That's Jack's line.
But yeah, like, I don't know. I just really feel like if they had played her in a more mature way, or not made her seem like she was just so impetuous, she would have been a very likable character. Because in many ways, she was, well, not even in just in many ways, very clearly, she was his only weak spot. He had lost his surrogate father. He had lost his foster family. She was the only person that had been with him from the start of his old life to the beginning of his new life. Right. And he cared very deeply for her. And I thought it was really irresponsible and gross that she tried to have Xiao Fei hurt. I didn't like the fact that instead of trying to convince her brother that maybe we need to make better efforts in ensuring that the rest of the company is happy taking this legitimate route. At every turn, she's like, oh, we don't need to go so fast, or we can't give up the drugs just yet. And it's like, you're not really helping this situation.
Right.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
So I think if they had made her character a bit more mentally mature, I wouldn't have had a problem with the age gap relationship, and I would have appreciated her role in Tangi's life.
Right.
Because he needs her to exist, because outside of her existing, he would have lost everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I get his motivation for, like, I have to go see her when she's kidnapped immediately. I get why he's so protective of her, but she needs to grow the fuck up.
Yeah. It made me sad that, like, the female characters were just, like, piss poor in this show. And it was kind of creepy when she got with Dao Yi, in my opinion, because, like, you were mentioning earlier how, like, Old Tong and Tang Yi were, like, always together, and she wasn't around. So I saw scenes like that. I was like, oh, she must be with Dao Yi. So I'm like, he's, like, raised her since she was a child. It's weird, guys. It's weird.
It is weird, especially because, like, in a way, it feels like they tried to excuse the relationship by being that she was the pursuer and he didn't want her. But you lose that argument when he's constantly trying to keep her away from being with somebody else who's very interested with her.
Right.
Because she meets the one guy who's the construction company owner, and he's like, I would like to date you with the intent to marry. Which I was like, girl, he has just spoken my entire love language. I would die if some man took me on a date and said, I'm seriously invested in you. I would like to date you with the aim of possibly getting married in the future. We will be doing serious dating.
And rich. Do it.
Yes!
Oh.
Like, he was good looking. He was rich. He didn't care that she came from a mob family. He just, like, straight up, I think you're an amazing woman. I want to date you and eventually marry you.
You know who I forgot about? Speaking of hot people, you know who I forgot about before this rewatch?
Andy!
I was not going to say Andy, but yes, he is really hot and I love him. Hot Doctor.
Okay.
I'm a hot doctor. But when Hot Doctor appeared on my screen, I was like, who is he?
The scene where he was giving him the anti-soreness massage, that was so, like, come on, guys.
Oh, yeah. No, Hot Doctor and Andy could also get it.
Yeah. Andy, one of the funniest scenes in the entire show is when Andy is in Tangi's office and he's massaging his temples, and Xiao Fei and Zidi are looking through the blinds, and all of a sudden he goes down to the ground. I was like, okay, don't interrupt them though.
Yeah. Camera.
Let's see where the Also, like, what the fuck was he doing on the ground? Because he was on the ground for a really long time.
They did not explain that.
Right.
I thought I missed something when I was watching it. I was like, they just did not explain this. Oh, well.
Also, like, he says that Andy has a boyfriend, but Andy was also like, do you want to fuck when they were in the club? So are him and his boyfriend, like, super open? Because he kisses Andy at the club to make Xiao Fei jealous. Then they go to look at the security camera footage, and Andy's like, hey, you want to roll around old time's sake? He's like, no, it's okay. I don't want it right now. And I'm just like, he doesn't act like somebody who's got a boyfriend.
Could be an open relationship. Who knows?
Could be. Just like, whatever you want to do. But yes, Andy was so hot. Like, very, very, very hot. He was also very funny. But yeah, the doctor was fine. Also, again, I feel like this goes to show people really need to get out of their heads when it comes to assigning personality traits to sexual positions, because if we were going by whatever evidence the show is telling us, they made it sound like Tangi was receiving penetration during the anti-soreness massage, because he was the one who was crying out like, ow, it hurts, and that was him crying out. So again, it's just like, so you're saying that a character can only be a top if they exude a more masculine energy? Like,
right.
Get out of here.
Not a fan.
Yeah, I think it's stupid. I'm trying to think. Oh, you know what we haven't talked about yet? Your favorite couple.
Oh, yeah.
Jack and Xiaoxi.
I love them. They're so fucking wholesome. Give me my sequel series where Jack is running like a food stand, and you know, Zhaoji is, you know, still working for the police, and they're just domestic bliss. And they run into funny shenanigans. Yeah, I like that. Or just Jack becomes the police chief. Give me that one too. That's fine by me. You can call up Interpol and be like, can I have this job instead?
I loved Jack. There were a couple of moments, and I know you're not going to agree with me, but I'm looking at this through Stan eyes. There were a couple of moments where when Jack was smiling, he reminded me of a very young Minho. But it's his teeth. It's his teeth. I don't know how to explain it.
Minho.
It's his teeth. Like I said, I'm looking through Stan eyes. Leave me alone. But
his teeth. I've never looked at someone and been like, they got CL's teeth. Like,
you know what? We all have our own kinks. Leave me alone. I've told you before, my kink is teeth. Leave me alone.
That's not a kink.
It is for me.
Okay.
I just like teeth. Anyway, Jack and Xiaoxi's relationship was so interesting to me because, like, they were so brutally honest with each other about every emotion they were feeling at every single moment.
I like that for them.
I like that for them, and I thought that it was really cute to see, like, them just being like, I like you. But also, it kind of made me concerned because Jack was hiding that really big secret. We didn't find out till the end.
Mm-hmm.
And Jack was not honest about that with Xiaoxi, even at the end of the show. Like, he's like, I have another job, I'm going to go far away. But Xiaoxi doesn't know the role that Jack was playing as a double agent. He just knows that Jack was involved with the mafia because, I mean, Jack couldn't hide that. And I guess my concern is that Jack is never really truly honest with Xiaoxi, and I wonder at what point in their relationship will he be that way, or will he always kind of look at Xiaoxi as like this super naive lover that he can only be so honest with. So I don't know how that would be approached if there was a season 2 for this, but I would like to see that approached because I think that Xiaoxi could forgive him, wouldn't even have a problem with it. He just wouldn't want to be blindsided by that information coming out later. Because when he overheard the conversation about using people to get what you want, he was very hurt because he thought he had been lied to.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope that if there was a future, that Jack would be like, I need to let you know something about my past and tell him what was going on.
Yeah, that needs to be addressed. I would like that. But they're so fucking cute, Sam.
They are. Like, the fact that they're always eating, and like fucking Xiaoxi is apparently, according to his CV, he is an aerobatic dancer. And there were a lot of moments in this show where he showed off his aerobatic dancing skills, like walking on his hands, bending over backwards, like a lot of moments, you know? And so it made me feel like these two are really cute, but also like it goes down when it goes down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I loved so much about them. I love the scene where that scene of the last episode where Zhaoji is like, you lied to me, and Jack's like, all right, no, we gotta talk about this. And Jack's like, no. And then Zhaoji just like hoists him up, puts him on the motorcycle, and then they do like a loop around the like fountain, and Jack just goes wee. It's so sweet. I love that every time Jack shows up, Zhaoji just goes, oh, hi Jack, like just so innocent.
Yeah, like his nose is wide open. He loves that man. He just didn't know he loved that man until like a little bit later. Mm-hmm. I love the scene when after Xiaoxi finds out that the captain was involved in all the mischief and AZ was involved with everything, and then Jack's like, I'm gonna go away.
The one on the steps?
Yeah.
I think that one's good because it's the first time that both of them are very serious characters. You know, like they're always honest in what they're saying, but it's very playful. But that was the first time where you really get like emotional heavyweight from Zhaoji especially. Like he's like, why does everyone leave me? Why does everyone lie to me? You know?
Yeah. And it shows that he's invested in Jack. Like, it's not just, oh, you bring me food, so I like you. He's like, no, I've emotionally become accustomed to having you around. I
Mhm.
don't want you to go anywhere. And
Mhm.
it didn't take much convincing for him to let Jack move into his house
Yeah.
because he wants him to be there.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really nice that they, even though it felt like it was moving fast, at the same time, these are two people who don't have that kind of barrier. Oh, we got to take these certain steps that society tells us to do. They're like, no, I honestly just don't want you to go anywhere. You want to stay with me? You're gonna stay with me. It just is
Yeah.
what it is.
Hmm. And I love
Yeah.
that when after Jack decides, Jack moves in and Zhaoji's like, yeah, I guess he can stay. He starts to help him cook and then he kisses him. He like initiates a kiss and you're like, he really does like him. And then they're making out and you're like, good for you guys.
Yes, and then they decide to have sex, and it's so funny because like Jack is doing push-ups on the ground, but like very loud, aggressive push-ups. Meanwhile, Xiaoji is in the bed like, oh, I've been reading about this. I'm very nervous that this might hurt.
I love that he was reading like a yaoi to like prepare. I love that. He's like, because that's just so in character for him. Oh man, I gotta say, acting in this show is so good. Like, especially the guy that did like Zhao Ji. Like, every little thing that he did was so in character. Like, even the way that he would like hold his chopsticks was very quirky. Ah,
Yeah.
everything he did. The acting is so good. The four main cast was really amazing. I'm telling you, that's
Again,
like Tang Yi, that actor. I thought that man, he did such a good job of like slowly peeling back his emotions throughout each episode until episode, what was it? 8 or 9, where he finds out that Chen Wenhao is his dad at the beginning. And he's just like, he literally looks like he is going to murder that man. Like blinding rage. It's just like the way that the layers are pulled back is so good.
which leads us to talk about the graveyard scene and how gut-wrenching that scene is. So he Tang Yi goes to the gravesite of Li Shen, who is his birth mother.
Mhm.
And he talks to her and he's like, I don't really know you, but I know that you loved me and you did the best you could for me. And I'm grateful for that. And then Wen Hao shows up. And their interaction is very awkward, as it would be for somebody who at first you believe killed your surrogate father, and someone who has never really had a place in your life, and you're having to kind of let go of your anger and your animosity, but then kind of decide, like, well, what is our relationship going to be
Right.
moving forward? So I thought that they handled it very carefully. It was very, it was very subtle the way that they moved from two strangers and not knowing what to say to having that final hug. And when Tang Yi walked away from that final hug and he was going up the stairs and he heard that gunshot and then he broke down on the stairs, I was like, someone needs to rescue this man. Is anybody on standby? He's not going to make it up the stairs.
Yeah. I'm like, where's Xiaofei? Where'd he go? That scene, I remember watching it the very first time, and I didn't see it coming. Like,
No one did.
it makes sense why he would be like, why Wen Hao would be like, yeah, this is really it for me. And you feel bad because honestly, that man has had a sad fucking life. And then he just kills himself, and you're like, and then they cut to like a note that he had written to Li Zhen, a note that he had written to her that she had kept for all these years that was brought to the gravesite, and it was like the note said like, I've made a lot of mistakes in life. The only mistake I didn't make was loving you. And I was like, that man's fucking dead. Fucking he.
I mean, there were just so many layers to like all the ways that he had let down all of his most important people. And I could see where something like that would crush you. You thought that your best friend betrayed you with the love of your life, and then you find out that's not true. You find out that your actions have been causing massive pain to your son, and you were about to kill your own son. You find out that, you know, the love of your life before she died had been doing everything she can to like stop drugs from permeating the street, and you were like one of the world's biggest drug dealers. And just all the ways that you let people down, all the ways that you constantly did the wrong thing. And, you know, having the son that this hug may be as close as you ever get to this man. Because one of the things that Tangi said before he went to the graveside is like, I can't have a relationship with this man because I'm trying to go legitimate, so I can't be involved with drug dealers.
Right.
So what kind of relationship can we actually have in the future when I can never talk to him? And it's just like, I think the crushing weight of all the ways that everything you hold precious disappeared. I don't know. I wouldn't do it myself, but I can get where somebody who was in a lot more fragile mental space would see that as an option.
Yeah. I mean, what's left? Really, what was left for him? No lover, best friend, lover and best friend dead. You can't have a relationship with his son. All he is a mob boss, and that's all he'll ever be until he dies, or gets shot the next day.
So, this show is so good. This show is so good. The only thing that, like, I think everyone kind of thinks that they failed at. Well, we mentioned a couple areas where we wish they could have done better, but one of the places where I think people think they absolutely failed at is that the show should not have ended with Tangi going into the prison. It should have ended with him coming out of the prison.
We really deserved a time skip to like 4 to 5 years later. I want to see not when Tangi, right when he gets out. I want to see he's been out for a minute and how's their relationship progressed since.
Yeah.
Because Jack's unemployed. Jack doesn't have a job. Like, what's Jack gonna do? I would like to know, you know?
I'd like to know what Jack is gonna do. I'd like to know if Daohee and Hongyi end up actually making a go of it. I'd like to know, like, did Xiaofei stay in his house the whole time that he was incarcerated? Did Xiaofei become the new police captain after everything happened? Because quiet as it's kept, there was a moment in the show where it seemed like Xiaofei, the only reason why he wasn't the captain is because of his kind of incessant need to investigate Tangi. But like when Xiaofei disappears, everyone's going to the captain like, this is what Xiaofei normally does. We usually get Xiaofei to write up on this. He usually takes care of that. And so like you really see the potential with Xiaofei that he could be the next police captain, especially like his logic. When he explains to Tangi why he doesn't need to shoot Wen Hao, because like, why would he shoot both of these people and then just stand there and let you catch him?
Yeah.
You know, like he's a really good police officer. So I would have liked to have seen like what happened with that. Was it made harder for him to keep his job because people know he's involved with a mob boss who's done time in prison? Like, there's more to this story that absolutely could be dived into. It doesn't necessarily need to have a season 2 per se, but it definitely deserved at least another 20 minutes.
Yeah, I would say a 15 to 20-minute epilogue would have been nice. I wish they had worked to shave time off of other aspects of the series and then gave us a nice ending, because they do such a good job of making you really care for these people. They do such a good job of establishing that this really could work after he's out of prison. Like, I totally believe that this couple, I see it for them. I totally see it for them after prison too. And it's like, I want to see it. You made me care so much, you know? Don't give me the end as he walks into prison. Fuck you. That's the last shot, is Xiaofei saying, I love you, and then Tanyi smiling and walking into the dark prison. No, I don't like that. Not at all. I hate it.
I don't like it either. Especially because, like, honestly, him going to prison is a very dicey scenario when you think about it. He's been accused of all kinds of different crimes by other crime bosses. There are people in the Xinjiang group who hate him. Who's to say that he would be even safe in prison, honestly? Also, one thing that they never addressed, he killed Wang Chun Chen.
Yeah.
He totally did it. And he never got caught for it, never had any kind of consequence for doing that. And there's probably people who are part of Wang Chao Chen's criminal organization who would have it out for him when he gets to prison.
Right.
So, like, you know, I'd like to know that he made it out safe, because the prison is not a safe place for him.
Mm-hmm.
So,
like,
yeah, there was still more story.
Yeah. It does make sense that he goes, I'm not mad that he went to prison. I'm mad that they didn't show it afterwards, you know? Like, it makes sense that he has to go to prison. He did wrong. Honestly, he's thankful he only has 3 years, considering all of the stuff that he's done, you know? So, but yeah, it deserves a better ending. Come on, just give us like you know what they need to do? They need to do, History 4 could just be one episode redoing, basically giving us an epilogue of Trapped, and then episode 2 is redoing episode 10 of Make Our Days Count. Please.
Yeah.
I
mean, but the History series, I appreciate that it was growing. Like, that's probably the biggest tragedy about History 3, is that when you got to History 3, as we've been going through the franchise, it's very clear that if they had kept going, they were capable of some of the top BL content that anyone is producing. Mm-hmm. And the fact that things ended on such a sour note is very frustrating as a viewer, mm-hmm. because I've not seen anybody deliver the kind of content that this show has delivered. Yeah. And they harken back to so many things that they've done in the past, like the Omu rice. That was part of the history with the man and his little girl. When they were drinking the Coke and he's like, my saliva is on that, that was part of the indirect kiss from the water bottle scene of History, You're My Hero. At one point he says the phrase crossing the line. At one point they say the phrase obsessed. They say the phrase stay away from me. Like, they were bringing in all of these different elements from all the previous histories and little bitty Easter eggs here and there. And it just really sucks that when all is said and done, it's not going anywhere else because of the asinine decision they made with Make Our Days Count, which we will go into that more when we're talking about Make Our Days Count. But if we were to talk about like what killed a franchise, that absolutely killed a franchise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So should we give our rating for the show?
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, I feel like this is controversy. 9.
Why is that controversy? Also a 9.
I feel like it's controversy because I think that I'm going to have a lower rating for Make Our Days Count, taking in the series as a whole. Mm-hmm. And that's why I feel it's controversy, because Trapped is not my favorite boys' love, but I think in terms of doing everything right, it did virtually everything right.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's fair. I mean, I don't think, like, something you think is rated best necessarily means it's your favorite. Like, mm-hmm. I love Frozen, but I'm not saying it's the best movie ever. But I love it, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. You know? Like, whatever. Who cares?
Yeah. So I know I'll be giving a lesser score to Make Our Days Count, and they'll probably be like, how can you do that when Make Our Days Count is so very special, which I absolutely agree it is. But in terms of just giving you a lot, this show gave us so much. It gave us so much in terms of plot and character and implications for a lot of the characters' actions. And it built a world that I was heavily invested in. And that means a lot, because not all boys love content has me as invested in their worlds.
Right.
Okay. So, I'm not going to have Samantha's rant this episode because me and Mason are actually going to be filming a separate rant video together. Yeah. So I'm going to save that. Instead, I'm going to go ahead and skip to the Instagram of the day. Also, we've been chatting for like over an hour, so I think that you guys are okay with skipping my rant today. It's been a while. So I'm going to go through the Instagrams of the main 4 people in the show. So like the 2 couples, I'm going to give you their Instagrams because I've been following these people for a minute now. I think that you might enjoy following them too because they're beautiful people. So the first one we have is Chris Wu, who is the character of Tang Yi. It's that actor. And his is _CHRISWU_. I find it really funny that his name is Chris Wu because that's the name of the former Mandarin leader of EXO, and they actually look very similar to me. I think it's their face shapes that look very similar, not necessarily their features. So that's Chris Wu. The next one is Jake, who played Xiao Fei. His Instagram is JAKEHAW1230. So it's Jack Ha 1230. He's doing a lot of modeling, so his Instagram is fun. I appreciate looking at him. He's got a weird haircut right now, but what can you do about it? And then the next Instagram I'm going to give you is the Instagram for Jack, and his is AndyBian0619. So it's AndyBian0619. He's so cute. He's a joy to look at. And then lastly, I'm going to give you the Instagram for Kenny, who played Xiaoxi, and his Instagram is SAWADAP_KENNY. It's kind of long, but it's Swadikap_Kenny. And one thing that I greatly appreciate about his Instagram is that it's kind of a kiki between me and Mason, but whenever these Boys Love guys decide they want to dance and sing, it's just like, ugh, not again, you suck. But Kenny can actually really dance.
Oh, yeah. He's good.
Yeah, so...
I like his Instagram too because, like, you know how when you follow someone, if they like someone else's post that you follow, it'll, like, show up? And he loves Hyuna, and I love Hyuna. And whenever she posts a new photo, it's always like, Sawadee Hop Kenny has liked this. And I'm always like, you know, same here, bro. Let's hang out and listen to Hyuna together.
Yeah, I love it. And a thing that I think might be a possibility, I don't know if it will be, but I don't know, like my mind is making independent connections that aren't real. So we've heard the rumor about there being a History 4. There's one actor who likes a lot of the History guys that I follow. He's a Thai actor, but he follows a lot of the History guys, especially Make Our Days. I think that Pavel from Two Moons 2 might in some ways have a connection or be involved with the possible resurgence of the History series.
I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know if he's the one I'd want. I
don't think that...
Speaking of Pavel, there was some lady on Twitter that was like, I'm getting his name tattooed on my neck. I'm like, no. Why?
Yes!
Why?
I said that to you. And it was just like, why would you do that? First of all, I never encourage anybody to get foreign characters printed on you if you don't know exactly what it says.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's how you end up with barbecue grill tattooed on your hand.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to Ariana. So yeah, I never recommend getting foreign characters printed on you if you don't fully understand what's being written and you've vetted it very carefully. Number 2, I don't really like neck tats because they're highly visible and it's a conversation piece. But 3, this is a fucking Boys Love actor. This is not somebody who's a part of your family. This is not somebody you're married to. This is not somebody you have a kid with. This is not one of your kids. This is somebody who really does not know you. Why would you get some stranger's name tattooed on you because you like them from a Boys Love? Like, I thought about getting a shiny tattoo, but my shiny tattoo is not going to say Jonghyun, Minho, Ki, Onu, Taemin. It's going to be something that's related to some of the iconography of SHINee. But yeah, On your fucking neck, you're gonna get some man's name who doesn't even know you?
And like,
wow.
And like, why 2 Moons too? Like, of the boys' loves, I'm also like, there's a taste issue here.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Pavel is good looking. He's losing his hair, so he's had some very questionable hairstyles of recent. But outside of that, he's not a bad looking kid. But I just don't see why you'd make that particular decision on your fucking neck, especially because Pavel is getting his neck tattoo removed. Like, he's been getting it lasered off. So, like, you're not even going to have matching neck tattoos because he doesn't have his neck tattoo anymore. It's just like, you are dumb.
It's a bad tattoo choice.
It's awful. Okay, so Mason, manga of the day.
I do, and I have a surprise. So, ooh, this is a little wet. Sorry, my drink must have. I had a drink next to it. That was a bad idea. I'm not a coaster person, but I guess this is why people use coasters. So
I use a towel.
I forgot if it was last week or the week before. I recommended Secret XXX, and I recommended it. I really liked this, and then I found out a sequel exists, and I did not know until this week. So I bought and read the sequel, Therapy Game, and it's better. And I like it. And volume 2 of this, I think, comes out next week, and I haven't bought it yet, but I really want it. But I also spent too much money on Blackpink's album, so it's not a priority. But I really like this. This is not, it doesn't follow the main characters of Secret XXX. So this series follows these two characters. This series, Therapy Game, actually follows their siblings. So red-haired guy here is the older brother of this guy, and blonde-haired guy is the younger brother of this guy. And it's got a weird premise. It's basically, one night, he was drunk at the gay bar. I forgot why the reason he was at the gay bar, I forgot. I think it was because he was trying to grab his brother. Because his brother went, I forgot why he was there. I forgot it's a scene from here. He's drunk at the gay bar in here. And then Minato, this character, is like, kind of consoling him at the bar. So this picks up from where that left off. And Shizuma, red-haired guy, is like, oh, you know, you're such a nice guy. And basically saying, like, complimenting him, saying very nice things to him. And Minato, like, he had a hard life. He's one of those people that's like, I'm never going to love anyone because they're just going to leave you type of people. So this guy, like, really says some things that really hit him in his heart. And he's like, okay. And they end up fucking, which is questionable because he is drunk and no, they shouldn't have done that and I don't like that. However, they wake up the next day and Minato's like, do you remember last night? And he's like, nope. And then Minato is like, well, if you don't remember last night, then I'm going to try and get you to like me so I can break your heart because you really hurt my feelings. But then they end up falling in love.
I was going to say, like, he doesn't remember because he was drunk. How did he hurt your feelings? But I digress. Stephanie, could you do me a favor? Can you go and get my Barnes & Noble bag out of that chair? I don't normally have a manga of the week because I don't normally buy manga. But I saw something at the Barnes & Noble that really caught my attention because I felt like it was my life story. And so I wanted to share it with everybody just because it is the first manga I've ever purchased printed. And it's this book right here. It's called BL Metamorphosis.
Oh, God.
And
what is that?
Okay, so I don't know if you can see, but it's an old lady and a younger girl sitting around with a bunch of their BL mangas.
Oh, is this the one where they both read manga together and she's like some old lady that reads manga?
Yes.
Okay.
So I bought this because when I read the synopsis, I'm like, this is obviously my life story and I need to read it to see how close they got. But Boys Love for the Ages. Ichinoi, a 75-year-old woman living a peaceful life, unwittingly buys the Boys Love manga one day and is fascinated by what she finds inside. When she returns to the bookstore to buy the next volume, the high school girl working there Urara, a seasoned BL fan, notices a budding fangirl when she sees one. When Urara offers to help Ichinoi explore this whole new world of fiction, the two dive into the BL fandom together and form an unlikely friendship along the way. What I really liked about this after I started reading it is the fact that it's not creepy, number one, but number two, it really does feel a lot like how you fall into these things. It's quite by accident. It's word of mouth. I was planning to do something else and I end up in this situation. And I really like the fact that like that's how the older lady fell into the boys' love, and like that kind of whole page turn, like, oh no, not the end of volume 1. I have to buy the next volume. But also I like the part with the younger girl about kind of her social awkwardness and her not being able to talk with people her age about her liking boys' love, and it kind of being this really taboo thing. And for a lot of us who watch boys' love, we would love to share it with our friends and family, but you kind of have to gauge the people around you and see if they are people that you can be open about this with or not, because as progressive as a lot of our family members may be, and as progressive as a lot of the countries we live in may be, there's a big difference between people being accepting of a person's sexual preference and them wanting to actually see it live and in color.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people are like, I'm cool if you do the gay thing, just don't bring it to me, which
Mm-hmm.
doesn't feel like acceptance. But that's the reason why, like, even though my mom knows I listen to K-pop, and even though my daughter knows I listen to K-pop and I watch BL and all this stuff, I've never shared the fact that I watch BL with my mother.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that I think that my mother would look down on me or have anything weird to say about me. It's more that I haven't shared it with her because I feel like that's almost one step too far in terms of revealing myself. And that was one of the things that I really liked about the concept of this, is that in a lot of ways, my enjoyment of BL is a part of what makes me Samantha. It's part of what is my personal recreational time. It's a deep interest of mine. And it kind of sucks when you're living life and you have these things that are a big part of you, but only a limited amount of the people who love you and know you are allowed to have notice of. So I find that this really does speak to my soul. I feel terrible that there wasn't a part 2 for me to buy, because I would have if there was a volume 2, because this was a very quick read, but I really appreciated that this exists, because I don't know of a lot of other books that talk about friendships between women of big age gaps, and also those friendships being based on kind of taboo things that are harmless but still taboo.
I feel like I need to read this.
I'll let you borrow it. I'll send it to you.
Ship it to me. All right.
All right.
I think that's it.
We should talk about what we're watching next.
Yeah, next week is Make Our Days Count. Get ready. Hopefully it's just as good as you remember. And less heartbreaking.
Okay. So when we talk about Make Our Days Count, we'll have to talk about the entire episode, because there's no way to get around the elephant stampede in the room. Mm-hmm. But I do want to say that if you don't want to have the series ruined for you, we highly recommend that you not watch our review if you don't want to have it ruined for you, but also only watch to episode 9. Mm-hmm. Like, I've given this warning to multiple people in my life and they've disregarded me, and they've hurt themselves because they disregarded me. I'm just going to say it now. If you want to enjoy Make Our Days Count and you don't want it ruined for you, do not watch our review before you've watched the series. Do not watch our review if you take my warning and only watch to episode 9 on Vicky. And if you disregard everything I'm having to say, I just want you to know it's not my fault that your day has been ruined.
Nah, I still blame you.
No, don't blame me. In no uncertain terms, I'm like, don't do this. And you're like, I do what I want. I'm a bad girl.
I didn't say that. I said I'm going to watch episode 10 because don't listen. And then I watched episode 10 and I was literally mad for 2 days. Like, Went to bed, man. Woke up, man. I was just like, God fucking damn it, this motherfucking show.
Yeah, so you're hearing Mason's violent reaction to this. I didn't even have warning. I caught it completely off guard, and I was just devastated. So I say all that to say, like, love you guys, the best for you. We really hope that you'll continue to join us as we're doing these vlogs, but this is one of those times where if you decide that you couldn't join us for the rundown, I would totally get it, because it is heartbreaking, and for a lot of people, I think it puts them in a very dark place. So I wouldn't want anybody to do something that was unkind to themselves.
Mm-hmm. All right. And with that, we shall go. Thank you for watching. Bye.
Bye.